Hello there. For the next couple of minutes, we will be talking about the second language learning variable identity, based on the studies of Patricia Duff and Mohamed Nasrullahi. This video discussion was put together by Gabriela Clavijo, Daniel Flint, and Macarena Lisboa.
Before we begin, we would like for you to think about the following questions. Are you aware of the expressions you use to communicate? Is there any English accent you want to achieve? And do you think that this is related to your identity? As you may have noticed, we have placed a QR code at the bottom right of the slide. Now, we would like you to pause the video and scan it. The code will send you to a Jamboard where we encourage you to leave your replies.
To begin, we will be explaining the main concepts related to identity. Then, we will be displaying the analytical frameworks that help us understand how these studies were realized. Subsequently, we will be showing the research approach and conclusions of the studies we based our work on. And to finish, we will display the importance of identity in EFL classrooms.
To make it easier for all of us to understand the variable identity, we must define a few concepts. First, we have motivation, which is the attitude towards anything that you desire, especially when trying to accomplish your goals. Secondly, there is investment, which Norton describes as the degree of involvement each student puts into learning the target language in light of their desires and hopes. Thirdly, Duff indicates that agency is a capability each learner has to make informed choices, exert influence, resist, and also comply. Last but not least, we have the concept of voice. Voice is the attempt each learner makes to capture their individuality through language. Each individual chooses which way he wants to express his voice. For example, an aspect of voice is the accent chosen to portray, especially when we're talking about English or Spanish or any language that can have more than one accent.
But what is identity? Well, according to Gano and Norton, identity is theorized to be the position a learner occupies or aspires to occupy, usually playing itself out in the form of an imagined identity or a desire to belong to an imagined community.
You may wonder, has identity always been viewed this way? Well, the answer is no. There have been changes in the focus of research that have led to this definition. You see, at first, in early studies, identity was considered as the ethnic and social factors, such as gender, race, sexuality, and transnationalism. In case you didn't know, a person that is transnationalist is someone who lives in a place different than their heritage, but still lives by those traditions within their family circle. For example, a Chinese family that moved to the United States of America. So, although those may still be part of our identity, we as humans are more complex. Therefore, in recent studies, identity has been considered as each individual's personal interest as the main factor of one's identity, with the possibility of it having a transformation, or multiple facets. Everybody has the possibility of constructing more than one identity, and these can change with time.
Now that we have a better sense of what identity is, we will proceed to discuss its two major analysis frameworks. For one, Fairclough in 2003 described that identity or identification can be realized through a range of linguistic features such as metaphor, vocabulary, and various aspects of pronunciation. Furthermore, in the context of learning English, students' use of words, registers, and phonological features have the potential to convey a sense of the identities they aspire or desire to invest in. He also elaborates on the mechanisms of modality and evaluation in the discursive constitution of identity. On one hand, modality concerns the speaker's orientation to the necessity or truth of their statements. It is realized in English through linguistic devices such as should, could, it appears that, and the word like. On the other hand, evaluation involves the speaker's portrayals of what is desirable or undesirable in discourse. In other words, when a learner evaluates his or her speech, they identify and select what words portray who they are trying to become. It has to do with self-satisfaction.
Equally important, but Schultz and Hall in 2005 established the mechanisms of how identity is constituted in interaction. One means of identity construction in discourse, they contend, is through the use of linguistic structures and systems that are ideologically associated with specific personas and groups. This investment is then realized in the choices of linguistic structures, that is to say, their agency, including the phonological features, vocabulary, or register, which learners view as linked to those identities. These choices are a result of the investment put in, which then form their voices. Every time a learner speaks, they project an image of self, an identity created through an orchestration of the specific linguistic structures used. the author also addressed different identity devices. First, there is distinction and adequation, which refer to the discursive strategy of creating distinctions or parallels in discourse for identity purposes. Second, there is authentication and delegitimation, another set of devices in the framework that are concerned with how identity is discursively constructed by appealing to what source of language and language users count as genuine for a given purpose. Lastly, they make mention of indexicality as potentially significant for the construction of identity. This is because indexicality refers to the links between language and social context or social meaning.
The previous frameworks were employed in Mr. Nasrallai's study, where the main goal was to find how learners' identity affected their engagement. This aligned the relation of the learner's sense of self to the language they produce. The approach was a multiple case study that consisted in class observations, participant observation with informal chats outside the class, social linguistic interviews with metalinguistic commentary, and language learning history interviews.
In Table 1, there is Ali, a student who is invested in colloquial English. In his interviews, he claimed that his use of words, such as cool, was intentional and drawn from television shows, especially Friends. He does this so that his English is considered more genuine and friendly, or as he put it, like Americans. As we know now, what Ali does is use the identity device of authentication. His only connection to the Western world is television, and therefore he considers the vocabulary used as more genuine than the formal English he is taught in school.
In the same study, we have Navid. His voice is very different from Ali's. This is because, through evaluation, Navid declares a preference for sophisticated English. In his interview, he shaped his identity through the use of distinction. He differentiated himself from others because, in his words, while others went out and played, he stayed in to read things with relation to science. His use of words such as vex and juxtapose are selected because he views them as more academic. Thus, his investment in voice becomes indexes pointing to the realm of science. But why is he so invested in a specific scientific sophisticated voice? Well, because of his past and envisioned future, in which he plans to go abroad to continue his education by doing a PhD in mechanical engineering.
In this study, Ali and Navid represented two very different positions in relation to how they invested in the creation of their identity. And with this being said, once again, we have more questions for you. Who do you identify yourself to the most, Ali or Navid? Why? Have you invested yourself in media? What kind of media? If so, were you conscious of your investment? Don't forget to pause this video and scan the QR code below to leave your replies.
Here, there's a side-by-side comparison of the conclusions of the studies we've explored. On the left, we have the conclusions from Nasrallai. He has deduced that, in first place, language use and learning is propelled by vivid visions of how students see themselves. Secondly, a solid way towards success in EFL is investment in a distinctive voice. Third, voice is influenced by one's past, present, and future. And fourth, teachers must use pedagogical activities that can nurture one's voice. A way of doing this is giving a wide variety of books for students to choose from based on their interest, and then make a report on it. Now, on the right-hand side, we have the conclusions from Duff's study. She has established that today's identity research focuses on the differentiated, varying, social, and temporary aspects of it. Also, that teachers must understand their position as enablers of rich learning, and therefore eliminate stereotypes from teaching so that everyone can freely explore their identity. She accomplishes this conclusion by observing that many Japanese heritage students in a Canadian school are often viewed and treated with stereotypical attitudes, not allowing them to build their ideal persona. She saw that many times they feel pressured to be someone they don't identify with.
It is most important to include identity in an EFL classroom. By doing this, the teacher will create student acknowledgement. Appreciating students' voices is key for them to create the speaking persona. In one of the classroom's observations from Duff's study, she points out how a teacher in a Spanish class from an English-speaking environment mostly included those students from a Latino heritage, not taking into account the observations made by those learning Spanish for the first time. Despite her good intentions, she was trapped in the Latino stereotype. This cannot be acceptable because everyone deserves to be heard, and it is important to eliminate those kinds of stereotypes in classrooms so students can feel more comfortable expressing their true selves. That's why, by acknowledging students, you're helping them build their confidence.
In order to encourage students in finding their identity, you should try to ask about their interests and use them to plan your classes. Maybe you could find out what their interests in terms of music, TV series, and movies are. In addition, encouraging your students to give their opinions and tell their stories is a way to help them feel comfortable in their environment. You must always make sure you listen to different points of view without judging them. If so, you might make that student uncomfortable, and as a result, they won't participate anymore. It is most important to accept and celebrate everybody's differences. Last, to keep that fun, communicative interaction, ask them about their past experiences with a foreign language, or what their expectations for the future are. It will help clarify what they want to be and what type of person they want to become. There is a big possibility they've never thought it through. Please remember to always be respectful. Make your classroom a safe place for learners and a place they want to continue appearing at.
To sum up, we would like to emphasize on what was said by Cramsh. It is crucial to recognize learners as not just communicators and problem solvers, but whole persons with hearts, bodies, and minds with memories, fantasies, loyalties, and identities.
Now that you know how identity influences the second language acquisition, we would like you to tell us, what will you do to nurture your students' voices? And what do you think is a good method for avoiding stereotypes in the classroom? As usual, write your ideas in our Jamboard using the QR code on the screen.
Finally, here we have an overview of the information provided during this presentation. The learners' voices indicate that their language use and learning are motivated by vivid visions of how they see themselves in relation to English. Language learning is the process of assimilating others' words and the process of crafting one's voice. L2 learners might deliberately not accommodate to certain target L2 features because some forms or registers are incompatible with their identities. We as teachers can play a significant role by bringing language to life, allowing learners to become whoever they identify with through voice.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you learned as much as we did about the importance of identity in the classroom. Also, don't forget to leave your comments in our Jamboard. Have a good day!